very different than the XP 2.0. The 2.0 has got a hub motor. If you set the PAS mode to 5 and you start pedaling, it's just going to go to stun and send 18 amps to the motor, and you're going to start going as fast as the bike is going to take you, which is potentially up to 28 miles an hour. On this bike, it's not going to do that. All right, it's not automatically going to take you to 28 miles an hour just because you set it on PAS 5 and then unlocked it to a class 3. That's not how the mid-drive motor with a torque sensor works. Hello and welcome to Random Things. This is Ty, and this is video number 2 on my series on the Lectric XPremium. In the first video, I did the unboxing and I did a real quick walk around the bike. For this video, I've had the bike for about 50 miles in a week, and I want to go through the actual components in a little bit more detail and what does it mean to you as a rider. And more specifically, I also want to get into the motor. Now, the XPremium is a mid-drive motor, and here's what's really important. It's got a torque sensor, and that's going to mean that it rides very different than the typical hub motor like the XP 2.0. So stick around as I talk about that, because you're going to want to understand that, especially if you haven't bought the bike yet, because that will affect, I think, your decision on whether or not you want to get this bike or not. So without further ado, let's get into this bike. Okay, so we'll start with the front. So the XPremium comes with Lectric's premium headlight, which is a lot bigger headlight than the standard headlight that's on the XP 2.0. Now, it also comes with a 4-inch tire as opposed to 3-inch tire. And in addition, what you can't see is the XPremium comes with slime in their inner tubes already pre-filled when they ship the bike. So that means that the inner tubes got the slime liquid in there to kind of help heal itself if you get a minor puncture in the tire through the inner tube. Now, in terms of the fork, the XP had a 40 millimeter of travel. For the XPremium, they went to an 80 millimeter of travel, so that when you actually get into a bumpier road, because this is a heavier bike, it will absorb that a little better. But if you're just riding on paved streets, you're probably not going to notice that as much. Now, the XPremium does have 2 batteries. Here's the primary battery, and here's the secondary battery. Now, it does have a little power sensor, right, to kind of let you know and wake it up and let you know the power setting. Now, one important thing is, I've seen this on the Avaton, and it's probably the only other bike I've seen it, is that after 48 hours, the battery will go to sleep. What that means is, let's say you haven't ridden it in a week, even though the bike has juice in it, and you try to hit the power button, it actually will not power up until you actually wake up the battery. So you got to press that first, wake up the battery, and then you can power up your bike. The XPremium has 2 batteries. Each battery is 10.4 amp hours. So basically you're running a 20 amp hour battery. Now, each battery actually has its own charging port. So this is for the primary battery, and the charging port for the second battery is back here. And that's important because you actually have to charge the batteries independently. So you can't just charge this one and assume that this one will get charged. But in terms of drawing power from the battery, the bike will know which battery has power. And so, for example, let's say for whatever reason you forgot to charge this one and you charge this one, right? So this one has full voltage and this has half the voltage. The bike will start drawing power from this battery until it gets to the equivalent voltage as the second battery. Once the voltage are equal, then it will actually start drawing them kind of switch back and forth automatically. You can't actually tell the process, but that's how this dual battery system will work. Okay, moving to the handlebars, the XPremium does come with faux leather grips or fake leather grips. It's supposed to give it kind of a higher end, classier look and feel. This is really more of a personal preference. Some people actually still prefer the rubber grips as opposed to this slipperier fake leather grips. Now, one thing that I have noticed is that there's not a lot of space in the handlebar. Now, I've inserted the factory mirror and I put it in between the brake and the controller mount, but there's not a whole lot of space left for me to put, say, a foam mount, all right, or anything else. So, and if I did put a foam mount, it'd be kind of slanted because it's on that slanted part of the handlebar. So I'm gonna have to look in to see what we can do to add more stuff. Okay, moving on to the brake. The XPremium comes with hydraulic disc brakes as opposed to the standard cable disc brake. And what that means is that it uses a fluid in the brake cable assembly so that when you pull the brake assembly, it is a incompressible fluid that squeezes the brake calipers and the pads onto the 160 millimeter disc, which will give it a lot more stopping power than the traditional cable brakes, which has a tendency to slip and stretch, especially when it gets hot. Now this is important because the XPremium is a very heavy bike, so you need some pretty good stopping power in order to actually stop the bike. Okay, let's move on to the settings. So to get into the settings menu, you hold the plus and minus button down at the same time, right? And so this is the first setting. And so number one is the actual backlight and how bright you want it. So 2, 1, you can kind of see how it changes, right? Number 2 is whether you want it in metric or in English units, so miles versus kilometers. So so if you change it to 0, then it's in kilometers. If you change it to 1, it is then in miles. 3, I actually don't know. You actually can't change that. 4 is actually how long before it times out. So it's got 10 minutes before the battery powers off the controller screen. Let's go back to 10 minutes. Right, and you hit the power button to advance to the next, to accept the settings and advance to the next setting. 5, I'm not sure what that is. They don't tell you. You can't change that. Number 6, that's the wheel diameter. That sets basically the distance because it calculates the revolution and then it calculates how fast you're going. This is quite annoying. Let's go back to the 22. 23 actually is, I think, the default for the XPremium, but it's anywhere between 22 and 23. You can play around with that. Okay, number 7, you can't change that. Number 8, this is the actual setting where you actually change it from class 2, 32 kilometers is the max speed, or 20 miles per hour, or class 3, it says 100 kilometers, but that's not really true. Top speed is 28 miles per hour, right? Number 9 is whether or not you want to allow throttle or no throttle from a standstill. Okay, so this is actually a very important setting because if you have it at 1, you have to be pedaling before you actually use throttle. Okay, number 10 is also very important because it tells you whether or not you're going to be in pedal assist only, throttle only, or both. So 2 is both. You can't change that. You can't change that. You can't change that. This is the next one you can set. This is the actual odometer. You can reset the odometer, which I actually don't like the fact that you can do that. And then the next one you can set is this. This is the actual walk mode. So if you have it in 1, you activated the walk mode. If you put it to 0, you actually cannot activate the walk mode. So if you want the walk mode, make sure you change this to 1. So with that, that's your settings. So key ones to really know is number 8, number 9, and number 10, and number 21, because those are features that you're going to want to use. Now, depending on the state in which you are riding your Lectric, they have rules about whether it's a class 3 bike and a class 2 bike, and here's the actual sticker that designates whether or not this is a class 2 bike or a class 3 bike. Now, if you change that speed restriction from 32 kilometers or 20 miles per hour to 28 miles an hour, you need to remove this and change it to the class 3 sticker, which happens to be underneath here. So you just have to peel this one off, and the Class 3 sticker is underneath there. So as I mentioned in the beginning, the X Premium comes with a mid-drive motor with a torque sensor. What does that mean? Well, that means that in order for the bike to give power to the motor, it's got to sense that you are actually pedaling hard, like you're climbing a hill. If you're just kind of nonchalantly pedaling, it's actually not going to send a lot of amperage into the motor, so it's actually not going to allow you to go up to that high speed. So this is very different than the XP 2.0. The 2.0 has got a hub motor. If you set the PAS mode to 5 and you start pedaling, it's just going to go to stun and send 18 amps to the motor, and you're going to start going as fast as the bike is going to take you, which is potentially up to 28 miles an hour. On this bike, it's not going to do that. All right, it's not automatically going to take you to 28 miles an hour just because you set it on PAS 5 and then unlocked it to a Class 3. That's not how the mid-drive motor with a torque sensor works. And this is something that's very important. So if you bought the bike and you can't figure out why you can't go to 28 miles an hour and you're not sweating, it's because you're not sweating. You got to be pedaling in order to get to that speed, right? If you haven't bought the bike and you're thinking about it, you really need to try to understand this because it makes a difference. If you're on flat ground and you just want to take it easy in terms of pedaling and just going to go really fast, well, this may not be the bike for you. You may want to look for a bike that has a hub motor that doesn't have that torque sensing, right? And it's just going to go as fast as you want it to go and just very easily. Where this bike really shines, again, is when you are in a state where you have a lot of hills, or you live in an area where you have a lot of hills and you have to do a lot of climbing, or you want to ride long distance and actually put in the work, this bike will do it for you, right? It can go, because it's got the 20 amp hours combined battery, it can potentially go 100 miles if you just want to go 10 miles an hour. If you want to go fast, it will go fast, maybe go only 50 miles, but that's a lot better than the XP 2.0. So that's the basic overview for the Lectric XPremium. I'm going to take this bike for, I guess, a series of additional tests, taking it out on throttle only, see what kind of range I get, and also riding at PAS 5 and just seeing how long I can sustain 28 miles an hour. And if I'm able to sustain 28 miles an hour, what kind of distance can I actually get with 2 batteries fully charged. So those are videos to come. So with that, I hope you found this video helpful. And if you did, please hit the like and share button. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. That would really help me out. As always, I really appreciate you spending the time to watch this video, and I'll see you on the next random video.